I had to walk out here and show all my pants before I go back behind the thing. Aren't they awesome? I've gotten so used to working at home where nobody can see my pants. It's very exciting to be able to be somewhere where pants are visible. Thanks so much for having me back here. Thanks for leaving me till last and letting me stress out the entire week. I love that. Love that for us. Actually, it doesn't really matter. I'm so jet lagged. I got in last night. I don't even know what time it is. I think it's like 6 a.m. at home, 10 a.m. I don't know. I'm awake. I'm going to be talking about, it's called In Praise of Normal Engineers. And this was a talk that was based on a piece that I wrote for Luca Rossi, there's Luca, from refactoring.fm. This is why some people ask me, they're like, you have so much writing to do. Why are you still doing guest? And I'm like, because it tickles my brain differently. It makes me ask myself different questions that I never would have thought to have written on my own. And I really enjoyed writing this piece. So I hope you like it too. For those who don't know me, my name is Charity. Mary gave me a great introduction. I am old enough now that I have not only gotten to work with a bunch of truly spectacular world-class engineers over the course of my career, I have also gotten to work with a lot of engineers who then went on to become world-class engineers, 10, 15 years after I worked with them, which has been really interesting to think about, right? But I feel like a lot of us have had this experience where we're working with someone, we're just like, oh my God, how do they do that? It's like magic. They just seem like otherworld in their ability to size up problems or think really abstractly. I don't think very abstractly. I always need very concrete examples, right? I feel like a lot of us have had this experience, even though sometimes people look at us and say the same things about us. But I feel like that's kind of why there's this lingering, the curious durability of the patently ridiculous 10x engineering meme. It may be based on flimsy, shoddy research. Oh, it is. The claims that people have made to defend it have often been hilarious. 10x engineers have dark backgrounds, are rarely seen doing UI work, are terrible mentors in interviews. Okay, dude. But damn if it doesn't just resonate. It just feels true. We've all seen some engineers who just seem to code circles around the rest of us. It feels true. And honestly, a lot of people get very upset over the whole 10x engineering thing. I don't think the problem is so much the idea that there are engineers who are 10x as productive as other engineers. I mean, that's definitionally true. But the problems that I do have with it are twofold. First, how exactly are you measuring productivity if you're then saying they're 10x more productive? I have a real problem with the implication that there's one true metric of productivity that you can standardize and sort everyone on. The sheer just combinatorial magnitude of skills and circumstances at play. People and their skills are not static. At one point, I was a pretty good database reliability engineer. I even wrote the book on it. Maybe I was even a 10x database engineer then, but that's been 15 years. Certainly not one now. 10x engineer makes it sound like the 10x productivityness is some immutable characteristic of a person. I don't know anyone who is 10x better than everyone at everything across the board, right? Okay, so that's my first objection. My second objection is, so what? By the way, if you've ever met anyone who calls themselves a 10x engineer, I 100% guarantee they're an asshole. But so what? Individual software engineers don't actually own products, right? The smallest unit of software ownership and delivery is a team. It doesn't actually matter how fast an individual can write software. And boy, are we learning this now with the advent of AI, when we're suddenly, all of us, writing software 100 times faster than ever before. What matters is how fast and how well the team can collectively write, test, review, ship, maintain, refactor, architect, and revise the software that they do own. If it takes the slowest engineer at your company 5 hours to ship one line of code, it will take the fastest engineer at your company 5 hours. Generating code is and always has been the easiest part of the software development lifecycle. And AV continues to be the hardest problem in computer science. I think we're back. Cool. Actually, there is an exception. We do have a term for individual ears, engineers who own services or surface areas. We call them single points of failure. And like, there are no rules in software, right? I'm not saying this should never happen. It's quite normal at startups to have individuals owning software, products, features, platforms, because the biggest existential risk you face at that stage is not moving fast enough and going out of business. You're not optimizing for people being able to go on vacation or get sick or have a honeymoon, right? But as you start to grow up as a company, as users start to demand more from you, and you start planning for the survival of the company to extend more than a couple of months into the future, ownership needs to get handed over to a team. So being a great leader isn't about hiring the best individuals. It's about building the best teams. And when people talk or think about, these world-class engineering orgs, the FANGs, right? The Facebooks, the Googles, they often have certain stereotypes in mind. And they often have in mind teams that are really stacked with staff and principal engineers, really high-level folks. A lot of companies will pride themselves on which colleges they recruit from. A lot of companies will pride themselves on which companies they recruit from. Tech companies obsess over finding, hiring, keeping world-class engineers, putting it in double quotes. But they over-index on finding these people after they've already been developed into world-class engineers. And spoiler alert, that takes like 10 or 15 years. Which means you've got all these people who are completely capable of becoming world-class engineers. Nobody's interested until it's been done. They're overlooking the majority of the talent out there and chasing after the few engineers who already have exactly the right skills that they want, or have already proven themselves in exactly a particular domain. This is a story I don't often tell because it gets me a little worked up, but one of the reasons that I started Honeycomb was because I was leaving Parse, Facebook, and I was getting offered jobs that I'm like, I just did that job. You want me to come to your company and do that job again? How is that supposed to be interesting or challenging for me? This is not, I don't want to work with people who just want to do the same thing over and over. I don't want to work for someone who looks at me and goes, oh, well, she'll just do the same thing she just did. That's not fundamentally the kind of company that I want to be part of. We have this tendency to act like people are the way they are, and the way they show up on your doorstep is the way they've always been and the way they will always be. Even that's ridiculous. We say it out loud and we know it is. And it's exactly backwards. It's exactly backwards. Because the best engineering organizations in the world, I will hang my hat on this definition, are the ones where normal engineers can do great work. Where you don't have to be one of the best engineers in the world, or someone who's deeply pedigreed, or someone who has 15 years of experience, or in order to be productive. I actually think that a truly great engineering org is where people with a normal amount of skills, a normal amount of experience, can consistently move fast, ship things, respond to customers, try things, experiment, understand the systems that they've built, ship code, roll back, and move the business forward a little bit every day. Get a little bit better at their craft. Become a better teammate every single day. Any asshole can build an org where the most brilliant engineers in the world can build products and make progress. That is not hard. And putting the spotlight on individual ability in such a way has a way of really letting your leadership off the hook for doing their jobs. Or I guess that would be us, you, in this room. When we put all the emphasis on the individuals that we hire, and not as much on the structural, the systems that we build, the bar for leadership, this demand, I'm not gonna lie, it demands a lot more from us. It is a lot harder to build systems that people can use, that build systems that people don't have to be geniuses to use, build systems that, compose teams that are balanced, that pay attention to, that they're not just looking for interchangeable cogs. The bar for leadership is much higher, but it's a huge competitive advantage. If you can build sociotechnical systems where less experienced engineers can convert the majority of their effort and energy into product and business momentum. It's a huge competitive advantage if you can draw from a broader talent pool. There are so many companies out there just brag, Netflix, like, we hire the top 10% of global talent. I actually thought this was a joke, that Coinbase was like, well, it's not a joke. Coinbase is actually out there going, well, we only hire the top 0.1%. I wanted to post something, well, at Honeycomb, we only hire the top 0.0001%, motherfuckers. Sorry. Blame it on jet lag. But I actually personally find language like top 10% deeply off-putting. I see that, and I immediately go, not for me. I turn around. I know it's not for me. Some people actually do find this really motivating. They're like, I've built my identity around, I don't know, I guess, being challenged, measuring myself against the best of the best, and coming out the best. I'm told some people find that. I don't go to parties with those people. So some people do find it motivating, and my jokes aside, I don't think it automatically means you're a bad person. I don't, though. I see all this language around 1%, 10%, and I'm just like, I do not have a traditional background. And whatever rubric you're using, pretty sure I don't like it, or I won't qualify. And I have no interest in measuring myself against the best of the best in the world.
And if you're enjoying this, LeadDev has a ton more to offer.
I'm quite fond of the articles.
I feel like LeadDev blogs are my favorite, and it's been really, really useful to kind of create these more meaningful connections as well.
If there's something you're struggling with as an engineering leader, there's a pretty good chance that LeadDev has published something that addresses it.
So make sure you check out leaddev.com.
The other thing I would like to say is, if you are pinning your hopes and dreams on a strategy of hiring the top 10%, 1%, 0.1%, whatever, may I assume that you plan on paying them in the top 10%, top 1%, top 0.1%? Because if not, Netflix says, right? More power to them. They're like, this is who we are. I haven't talked to any other companies who are like, yes, we're going to pay for that. And I feel like they may want to rethink their strategy. There it is. I use the term normal, though, and I want to take a quick detour, because normal is a pretty loaded term. I think a lot of us have learned to sort of wince and avoid it, which is exactly why I put it in the topic of my article. But I think a lot of us technical folks, we got really attached to our identities as smart kids when we were growing up, right? And the software industry tends to reflect and reinforce this preoccupation at every turn. And I kind of want to challenge us to set that baggage aside for a moment. I think it can be humbling to think of ourselves as normal people, but most of us are, in fact, pretty normal people with many years of highly specialized practice and experience. We've been apprenticing in this career for, however long. I've been on call since I was 17, so that's like over 20 years. It's insane. Nobody's going to be normal at the end of that, right? But like that specialist pursuit aside, I am extremely neurodivergent, by the way, and I think that when I use the term normal, I am including a wide range of neurospiciness in there. But most of us are, in fact, pretty normal people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even those of us who are certified genius on certain axes are likely quite normal on others: kinesthetic, emotional, spatial, musical, linguistic, right? Normal. Most of us are more normal than we're not, even the weird ones. Being weird is pretty normal, it turns out. The reason I like to use the term normal is because I think it reminds us that nobody is born a great software engineer. Period. No one is born a great software engineer. Great software engineers are not born. They are made. They are forged over the course of many years of hard work and diligence and grit and opportunities and experiences. It's absolutely the case that software engineering both selects for and develops certain kinds of intelligence, especially around abstract reasoning. But nobody's born a great software engineer. And I don't think there's so much we can get out of thinking of ourselves as a special class of people compared to the value that we can derive from thinking about ourselves, pretty normal people who have practiced a pretty niche craft for a long time. So, 8 minutes. My goodness, I should speed up. I started with that question, and it turned into this. And honestly, none of this should be very surprising to anyone here. But it starts, the sociologist calls this the fundamental attribution error. It's our tendency as people to place so much of the onus in individuals and look so much less at the structures, right, at the systems. And I'll show my cards right up front, my biases. As a software engineer is about solving business problems using technology, which means that the only definition of productivity that actually matters is business impact. The only thing that matters is, are we moving the business materially forward in the direction that it's supposed to go? The number one productivity question is, are we working on the right thing? This so often gets skipped in our rushes to measure cycle time, PRs, code review, turnaround time. Alignment, you've heard a little bit about alignment here at this conference already, I think. It doesn't matter how fast you're typing or outputting stuff if you aren't fundamentally going in the right direction. In other words, alignment. And what that means is we can't wall teams off from the why of what's happening. I think any manager who sees their role as being that of a shit umbrella is a liability to your organization. Because the managers who are trying to protect their engineers from what's going on in the rest of the business, no, your job is to share what's going on, translate, connect, give them context. We want to build an organization where engineers are the innovation engine, not task takers or ticket monkeys. And the way that we do this is we invest in org transparency, hard conversations, saying no, hearing no, clear is kind. So much productivity is wasted, is lost, because people don't know how to say no or don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I feel like a whole slew of issues would be improved simply by shifting the focus on engineering, hiring, and interviewing away from all this emphasis on the best people and towards the more reasonable and accurate right people. There's no such thing as the best people, any more than there are 10x engineers. It's a competitive advantage when you can build an environment where people can be hired for their unique strengths, not their lack of weaknesses, where the emphasis is on composing coherent, complete teams rather than hiring the best individuals. So you have to know your business and craft a talent strategy to match. And this, what does excellence mean for your org? I feel like the shortcut to building great orgs starts with understanding your business, because there's no one definition of best, right? What is best for a team that's like a small microbiology startup, right, in Cambridge, is a different set of bests than Google SRE on the search organization, right? The best distributed systems engineers in the world typically all work at the Googles and Facebooks because they've been working on some of the biggest distributed systems in the world for the past few months or years at Google and Facebook, not because they were the best going in. And so you can't cargo cult excellence. You can't borrow any other company's definition of excellence and apply it to yourself any more than you can take their culture or their values and apply it to yourself. Specificity, precision is how we bridge this gap. The more precise you can be about the kind of excellence you need in your organization, and the more your org can build those types of excellence, the more your business can afford to get the talent that it needs. You can't be all things to all people. Don't try. In fact, we often make the mistake of thinking everyone wants what we want. But some people want to work on database storage internals. Some people want to be deeply challenged. Some people want to work 50, 60 hours. Some people want, and the intersection of what makes engineers great and what companies love is often found in that overlap between what they deeply need and what people dearly want to do. And a sort of test that, for me, that things are working is if you can think of several great contributors, people who you would wholeheartedly endorse and pass along to companies you deeply respect, but you wouldn't try to hire them yourself. That is a good sign, I think, that you're doing something right and being specific and identifying what specifically excellence means to your business and finding those people. Because there's no such thing as a company where everyone fits in. And finally, build sociotechnical systems with normal people in mind. When it comes to hiring talent, yes, absolutely, we should focus on identifying the ways people are exceptional, the things that their heart wants to do, et cetera. But when it comes to building sociotechnical systems for software delivery, we should focus on all the ways people are normal. Normal people have cognitive biases, confirmation bias, recency bias, hindsight bias. We work hard, we care, we do our best, but we also forget things. We get impatient, we zone out. Our eyes are drawn inexorably to the color red, unless we are colorblind. We develop habits and ways of doing things, and we really resist changing them. When we see the same block of text, we stop reading it, right? We are embodied beings, unlike generative AI. We get overwhelmed and fatigued. If we get woken up at 3 a.m., we're a lot more likely to make mistakes when responding to that alert than if we were responding at 3 p.m. Our emotional state can affect the quality of our work. Our relationships impact our work and our ability to get done. So when your systems are designed to be used by normal engineers, all that excess brilliance that they have can get poured into the product instead of wasting it on navigating the system itself. I have a super quick I have a super quick list of things here. None of this should be too surprising to any of you. The way you do this, number one, shrink the interval between when you write the code and when that code goes live. That gap is like the Rosetta Stone of software productivity, because when that gap is short, you can hold it in your head, you can close the loop by looking at the instrumentation you just wrote and saying, it's doing what I expect it to do. Does anything else look weird? It's amazing. One of the most powerful things you can do is to shrink that loop. Almost impossible to overstate how important that is. Make it easy to do the right thing, hard to do the wrong thing. The fastest way to ship a single line of code should also be the easiest. Make it so that every engineer can own their code in production. Invest in the ability to deploy and roll back cleanly, simply, no muss, no fuss. I love the emergence of the platform engineering discipline or ethos over the past few years. What I love about it is that it's like we in infrastructure have suddenly gone, developers must be humans. Perhaps we should take all of these fancy things that we apply to our customers with product and design and also apply those to our engineering tools. Minds everywhere have been blown. The world is a better place. Invest in observability and sense-making tools. Your developer tooling should be a force multiplier. And invest engineering cycles, internal tooling and enablement. You can't, this kind of thing, if it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job. It needs to have an owner. The social list of sociotechnical systems build an inclusive culture where people do their best work when they feel a sense of belonging. This is just science. I don't know about you, I did not grow up with a growth mindset at all. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I have had to learn it as an adult. The good news is, it's a learnable skill. Acknowledge your mistakes publicly. Learn from them. Show everybody that it's safe to screw up. We do it. Diverse teams are resilient teams. Now, it is absolutely true that a small team of super senior engineers who have known each other all their lives, have all the same reference points, can move super fast. Absolutely, I've seen it. But a monoculture is fragile. Someone gets sick, someone gets pregnant, you start to need to grow, and you start needing to integrate people from other backgrounds, and the whole team can get derailed incredibly fast. When your teams are used to operating with diversity, with a mix of backgrounds, genders, age ranges, stages of life, family status, geographical locations, when this is just table stakes, standard operating procedure, you're a lot better equipped to roll with it when life happens. And finally, shout out to what Mary was talking about, assemble your engineering teams from a range of levels. The best engineering teams are not top-heavy with staff engineers and principal engineers. They're not, because that's boring. Those are not happy principal staff engineers who are sitting here going, I'm making a login form for the 50,000th time in my career. That is not an engaged, learning, happy, interested individual. That is a person who's on autopilot and bored and just trying to get to the next thing. The best engineering teams are the ones where everyone is learning, everyone's growing, everyone's stretching their boundaries and improving all the time. The work, by the way, all this work that you put into making your systems resilient, well-designed, humane, is the same work you would need to do to help onboard new engineers, develop junior talent, let engineers move within teams. It gets used and reused over and over and over and over. When I talk about building for normal engineers, I'm not saying that excellence doesn't matter. I'm not saying that you should manage to the lowest common denominator. These are some of the objections I got after my essay. I'm not saying that you should not have high standards. I'm not saying that you shouldn't manage people out. I'm saying you should have extremely high standards. And this is how. You have specific standards for what excellence specifically means at your company, and you do not compromise. Know what excellence means to you. You can't buy excellence, right? You can only build it in-house. All of this is done in the service of excellence. I'm saying that your organization is a system. It's an organism. It's changing. It's an ecosystem. Instead of looking at the people who you interview and hire as static beings, who will they become in the time they spend at your company? I'm also saying talent is as common as dirt. Potential for excellence is everywhere. Be an org that values continuous learning and development, curiosity, and experimentation, and invests in people. Be the kind of place that builds and sustains high-performing teams and seeds the next generation of world-class engineers. In my experience, this is the kind of place that people do not want to leave. Thanks.